If there's a movie with a shocking twist ending that can drop your jaw in disbelief, a film where the ending will shock you so much you might curse out loud. All right, let's take a look now at what exactly the ending of this film tells us that left audiences so utterly stunned. The story begins at a California dock, where a cargo ship suddenly explodes violently in port, the blast killing 27 people on the spot and resulting in the loss of nearly $100 million worth of contraband. In the end, only 2 survivors remained. This news immediately alarmed the entire California government. To quickly uncover the truth behind the case and catch the mastermind, they sent in Agent Kujan from the FBI along with the relentless cop David. But when they rushed to the scene, Agent Kujan realized one of the survivors was actually Hungarian and couldn't communicate at all. Plus, he was hospitalized with severe burns, so there was no way to get useful information from him. On the other side, the second survivor turned out to be one of the participants in the bombing, but his background was extremely powerful. Even the mayor himself came to back him up. Before David could do anything to him, he was only charged with illegal possession of firearms and was about to be bailed out within 2 hours. But David believed the truth behind this bombing is definitely not that simple, because among the participants was a criminal David knew very well, Keaton. Keaton used to be a cop, but during his service he was often accused of murder. Yet every time evidence surfaced, witnesses recanted or ended up dead, so nothing ever stuck. And even after he was finally jailed, he managed to kill 2 inmates, but still no evidence tied him to it. You could say Keaton's record as both cop and criminal was notorious. So even though his name appeared on the list of the dead in the explosion, David refused to believe he would die so easily. Determined to uncover the full truth, despite pressure from above, he immediately sat down in the interrogation room to question a man nicknamed the Cripple. The Cripple had another nickname, the Talker, because he always rambled endlessly. But when David questioned him this time, he said nothing, calmly staring at the wall of newspapers, even asking for a cup of coffee. Then he began to tell how he once joined a barbershop quartet in Erie, where one baritone was a huge black man, as big as a whale. David clearly didn't want to hear this nonsense. He immediately told him not to change the subject. It was useless. "I'm smarter than you. I'll find what I need to know. Whether you like it or not, I'll uncover the truth." "I am not a snitch," the Cripple replied. But no matter how much David pressed him, the Cripple just stared quietly at his coffee cup, until suddenly, after a while, he began to tell a story from 6 weeks earlier. Back then, a truck loaded with gun parts was hijacked. The robbers were highly professional, leaving not a single trace behind, and the police were completely stumped. So in order to close the case quickly, they randomly rounded up 5 notorious local suspects to see if they were the culprits. Among them were Keaton and the Cripple. The police lined them up for a voice identification, which became one of the film's iconic scenes. But all 5 were seasoned criminals, so the police got nothing useful out of them and had no choice but to hold them in jail. Among this group, Blondie and Curly were longtime partners, often working together on thefts and robberies. Regulars at the police station. Beardo was a demolition expert, always listed as dangerous by the police, and the hijacking just happened near his home. Keaton, meanwhile, was a notorious criminal. Though he claimed to have washed his hands of crime and started a business with a beautiful lawyer, the police still made him a prime suspect. And finally, the Cripple himself, just as his name implied. He was lame, timid, and cowardly by nature. He'd only been jailed briefly for fraud. Compared to the others, he was insignificant, but the police arrested him anyway. What no one expected was that locking up these 5 men together actually created a powerful criminal team. 24 hours later, Keaton's wife bailed them all out, but Keaton's business collapsed after this false charge. Investors pulled their money and ruined him, but he refused to live off his wife and wanted revenge on the police. So under Blondie and the others' persuasion, he decided to return to crime to score big. Under the Cripple's plan, they targeted the police's black operations, using police cars to escort smugglers and drug dealers out, collecting huge protection fees. Keaton's crew was bold. They even stopped a police car in broad daylight and stole emeralds from the smugglers. The event caused an uproar. More than 50 police officers were investigated, and Keaton got his revenge. After profiting, The others decided to head to Los Angeles and deliver the emeralds to the buyer and complete the plan, finish their last job. But as David listened to the cripple's story, he found it absurd. He could not believe that ruthless Keaton would quit crime for a woman. He also didn't believe that the cripple could have planned the heist, since Keaton had been a cop for 4 years. No one knew the police's dark side better than him. Keaton had even once faked his death in a fire, then reappeared months later as a businessman. So David was convinced the cripple's story was a lie and that Keaton definitely hadn't died in the explosion, instead using the cripple to mislead the police. And Keaton was the real mastermind of the bombing. But the cripple said, "Horace, you're wrong. The mastermind was actually someone else, a lawyer named Kobayashi." When they fully arrived in Los Angeles and traded the emeralds with the middleman, Keaton wanted to quit then. But unexpectedly, the middleman introduced them to an even better job. In town, a foreign jeweler had just arrived carrying lots of cash and gems, and he only brought 2 bodyguards, making him an easy target. If they pulled it off, the middleman would only take the jewels, and the 5 of them could split the cash. A job like this was basically easy money for them, so without thinking twice, they accepted it. But little did they know what followed would be far beyond expectation. During the inspection, to protect Blondie, they shot and killed the 2 bodyguards. And the timid cripple, to everyone's shock, blew the jeweler's head off. Even he couldn't believe he did it. But in the end, after all the risk, the suitcase full of money was just filled with flour. Seeing this, the group instantly broke down. They realized they'd been played. Not only did they gain nothing, they had pointlessly killed people and lost everything in the process. It was a huge loss. So the group angrily confronted the middleman, but he claimed he didn't know either. He said he was just hired by a lawyer named Kobayashi, and that Kobayashi wanted to meet them the next day. The crew quickly realized they were being watched and targeted. While David was still interrogating the cripple, elsewhere, Agent Kujan had brought in a translator and a sketch artist. From the other survivor, they learned the deal wasn't about crystal contraband at all, but he didn't know exactly what it was. However, the mastermind was a mysterious figure called Kaiser. Kujan immediately had the sketch artist draw his face based on the survivor's description, and he passed this information on to David. Hearing this, David pressed harder. "Who is Kaiser?" The cripple, realizing he couldn't hide anymore, continued the story. When they finally met Kobayashi, he admitted his true purpose right away. He too was hired to get them to do a job, and once completed, they'd receive $91 million. The employer behind it all was Kaiser. But when the group heard that name, they froze in shock. Only the cripple seemed confused, as if unaware that this name belonged to a truly terrifying figure. Kobayashi sternly warned them this job wasn't a request, it was an order. If they refused, they'd all pay dearly, because all 5 had once stolen from Kaiser, and this job was their repayment. And Kaiser also held their entire criminal records since childhood. If he handed them to the police, they'd never recover for life. A few days earlier, they had all been jailed together. That too was orchestrated by Kaiser. After this entire setup, the group was completely powerless and had no choice but to agree. The task given to them was simple: disrupt a crystal trade deal, because the target was Kaiser's longtime rival. If this major deal succeeded, it would greatly strengthen his enemies. But Kaiser was born to be the boss. He would never allow that to happen. After Kobayashi explained everything, he left immediately. The cripple, still confused, asked who Kaiser really was, that even Keaton feared him. It turned out, years ago, Kaiser was already a feared mob boss, but his Hungarian followers didn't fully respect him, so they used his family to threaten him, hoping to take over, but Kaiser never gave in. He cruelly killed his own wife and daughter, leaving them powerless. And then he began his bloody revenge. Kaiser hunted down their families and friends, anyone connected to them, and slaughtered them all, to the last person. After completing his revenge, he disappeared without a trace. His deeds were known throughout the police, but Kaiser's identity remained a mystery. No one had ever seen his real face. After telling this story, the next day quickly arrived. When the group woke up, they discovered the Curly had run away and taken half the money with him. Soon, Kobayashi called, telling them Curly had already been killed, and they shouldn't worry. Clearly a warning to the others not to desert the mission, or they'd end up like Curly. Furious, the group decided. Keaton said it was better to strike first than to be controlled. He didn't even believe Kaiser really existed. All this was just a smokescreen from Kobayashi. The 4 remaining decided to kill Kobayashi to avenge Curly. But when they aimed their guns at him, Kobayashi calmly told them all their families were already under Kaiser's watch, and Keaton's wife was downstairs. If anyone made a move, the people below would suffer horribly. With no choice left, they swallowed their anger. It was clear they had to finish the mission. Soon after, the 4 armed themselves and headed out, but the ship was full of dozens of guards. They might not come back alive, but with no other option, they quickly divided their targets and began the attack. Blondie took the sniper role, while Beard was in charge of explosives as distraction. Keaton acted as the decoy, and the Cripple Man stayed behind to clean up. If the mission failed, he would grab the money and seek help from Keaton's lawyer wife. Once everything was set, Keaton pretended to chat with a lookout. Then an explosion suddenly erupted. Keaton and Blondie instantly took down several men. When crew members rushed out to help, Beard gunned them down mercilessly. Keaton and Blondie managed to infiltrate the ship. They searched for the drugs, intending to destroy them. Outside, Beard found piles of cash, but before he could celebrate, a bullet ended his life. As he turned his head, he seemed to see someone unbelievable, but it was already too late. Elsewhere, Keaton and Blondie searched the ship, but still found no trace of the drugs. Keaton realized then they might have been tricked again. Seeing this, Blondie only wanted to escape the place quickly, but soon after, the shadowy figure appeared again. This was too strange. Next, Keaton was shot, collapsing to the ground. Hearing the gunfire, the Cripple Man hid and watched. He saw the mysterious figure finish Keaton off with another shot. That mysterious man could only be Kaiser. When David heard the Cripple Man's story, he grew tense. He immediately demanded, "Why didn't you use your gun to help Keaton?" The Cripple Man looked utterly pitiful. "Because I was afraid. Afraid to death." Afraid of what? I knew it was Kaiser Soze. It was Kaiser Soze, the devil incarnate. How could you dare fire at the devil? And what if I missed? Just then, Agent Kujan brought in new evidence. They had found another body by the shore. The dead man was a smuggler named Arturo who was arrested in New York last year, and to avoid prison, he ratted on over 50 men. Among them was Kaiser. David finally realized the deal on the ship wasn't about drugs at all. It was about Arturo, the informant. If he fell into police hands, Kaiser would have no escape. The buyers were likely Kaiser's enemies, the Hungarians, and Keaton's wife was Arturo's extradition advisor, so Keaton surely knew everything. Their real mission wasn't to destroy drugs, but to kill Arturo and silence him. Unaware of the truth, the others were just Keaton's scapegoats. After saying this, David concluded that Kaiser had to be Keaton. After all, he had faked his death before. But why didn't he kill the Cripple Man? Because he saw Keaton's death with his own eyes. That made him a witness and the perfect cover. Keaton used him to clear suspicion, then pulled strings to get him bailed out. In the end, everything tied up neatly. But when the Cripple Man heard this, he refused to believe David's words because he thought he and Keaton were close, yet Keaton had been playing him all along. But when he learned that Keaton's wife had also been killed, the Cripple Man finally broke down. Tell me the truth. It was Keaton's idea. We always followed him. I don't know. I saw him die. I truly believed he was dead. David looked at this pitiful man with pity. He wanted him to stay at the station for safety, but the Cripple Man refused. He didn't want to be a snitch, and even cursed on his way out. Damn cops. He walked away with his gold watch and lighter, just like that. And with that, the truth of the explosion began to surface. Shortly after he left, David relaxed with a coffee and proudly recalled his brilliant deductions, his clever reasoning. But when he looked at the bulletin board, at the wanted notices, he froze on the spot. The board on the wall showed the barbershop quartet brand from Erie, and one of the wanted men was the big black man he'd heard about. Even the middleman the Cripple Man mentioned matched a name on the board. In that instant, David was stunned. So shocked, he dropped his coffee cup, and when it shattered, the logo on the bottom read Kobayashi. His scalp tingled. Instantly, everything had been fabricated by the Cripple Man, an earth-shattering lie. David finally realized that he himself was the real fool. He thought he was clever, but had been completely fooled by half-truths. When he rushed outside, the Cripple Man was already gone. At the same time, news came in from HQ. The sketch artist had finished Caesar's portrait, and the face drawn was exactly that of the Cripple Man. The one who seemed the most pitiful and harmless was actually the true killer. In the end, the cripple man himself was the biggest deception. Everything shown to the outside was false. His limp, the names, and the stories. Not one of them was true. In the end, he simply walked away proudly, disappearing from everyone's sight. A great movie must also be a great story, and it must have a great storyteller. Without a doubt, The Cripple Man was a brilliant storyteller. This vast storyline and complex logic he created out of thin air, just from scraps on a bulletin board. And everything he did was only to kill the one man who could testify against him. Ever since Keaton and the others were arrested, they had already been part of his plan. If you rewatch the film, you'll notice even more hidden clues, especially during the final mission. Keaton nobly told the cripple man to stay behind. If the mission failed, he should take the money and go to his wife. But according to David's account, Keaton was clearly a ruthless man. He would never let someone else walk away with the spoils. All of that was just a persona invented by the cripple man. So the truth was, Keaton told him to protect the explosives expert, Curly. But the cripple man shot him in the back instead. That was why Curly looked so shocked before he died, and why Blondie said so strange before his death. Once again, it proves the cripple man, Caesar, had an incredible IQ and masterful storytelling skills. Perhaps through all the lies and truths mixed together, the only real truth he told was that he once got jailed for a few days for lying. He was detained by the police for a few days because of cheating. But a liar must be a good novelist.